Okay. Ambassador of Palestine to Indonesia, His Excellency Mr. Zuhair Al-Shun. Ambassador of Morocco to Indonesia, His Excellency Mr. Wadia bin Abdullah. General Chairman of Nahdlatul Ulama, His Excellency Kiai Haji Yahya Khalil Stakuf. Director General for Asia Pacific and Africa Affairs from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Indonesia, Mr. Abdul Qadir Jailani. Head of the Institute for International Relations and Cooperation from the Muhammadiyah Central Board, Mr. Imam Adarukutni, award-winning journalist and senior fellow from the National University of Singapore's Middle East Institute, Dr. James M. Dorsey, Rector of the Indonesian International Islamic University, Professor Komarudin Hidayat, the Executive Board Member of IIIU, and all distinguished guests. Welcome to the PBNU and IIIU Ramadan Forum, Building Peace Between Palestine and Israel on the Basis of Sunni Islamic Jurisprudence for a Global Civilization. I'm Fahrul Hafiz Rinaldi, and on behalf of PBNU and IIIU Organizing Committee, I would like to extend our highest appreciation for your attendance and participation, and we hope the month of Ramadan has showered us with endless blessings. Lagu Indonesia Raya, followed by the national anthem of Palestine, Fidai.
Bangsa dan tanah
Ladies and gentlemen, please return to your seats. Now, we would like to invite Professor Komarudin Hidayat to deliver his welcoming remarks. Professor, the podium is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah wa syukurillah wassalatu wassalamu ala nabiyina rasulillah amma ba'du. His Excellency, the Palestinian Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia, His Excellency Zuhair Asun, Fadilatul Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Hafidh Yusuf Azam, Syariah Judge at the Ramallah Syariah Court, Palestinian Authority, His Excellency Gus Yahya Sakuf, General Chairman of the Ulama Central Board, Honorable guests and speakers, Mr. Abdul Qadir Jailani, Director General of Asia Pacific and Africa Affairs, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia, my beloved brother, Imam Ad-Darukutni, where are you? Okay. The head of the Institute of International Relations and Cooperation, Muhammadiyah Central Board, dear brother James Dorsey, journalist and scholar, His Excellency Badi bin Abdullah, Ambassador of the Kingdom of Morocco to the Republic of Indonesia, Honorable guest Holland Taylor, CEO Center for Shared Civilization Values, and also my friend, my dear brothers from Triple IU. Well, allow me to give a short speech to welcome our honorable guest to this evening. Well, the topic of this gathering, this event is how to end conflicts for genuine peace in the Palestine. As we know that the world have witnessed the problem of Palestine that emerged as remnants of the First World War. Since the initiative to set up the Jewish state of Israel started with Balfour Declaration in 1917. As we know that the peak was in 1948 when Israel declared independence. Since then, series of violent conflicts and wars between Israel and the Arab continue to explode and created suffering and misery for Palestine. Arab-Israel conflict has been major problem, not only for the Middle East, but also for the world. And conflict Palestine become one of the world's most protracted or unending conflict that continue to be a center of gravity for reproduction of violence. Even though the United Nations has condemned the Israel occupation to Palestine and released many and many UN resolutions, unfortunately, the UN resolutions are toothless. But also the Muslim world, especially Organization of Islamic Conference, also only end up in condemnation, while the occupation of Palestine violent conflicts continue to happen until today. And even there is sort of pejorative words of OIC, that is, instead of Organization of Islamic Conference, some say OIC, OIC, because they have no power to end these conflicts. We should learn from the reality of the continuous protracted violent conflict of Arab-Israel conflict in and over Palestinian land that have not been solved due to the reality of global politics that generally support the politic and operationalization of occupation the Palestinian land. That some serious problem that we are as Indonesian people not easy to understand why the global politic doesn't have enough power to end this continuous conflict in the Middle East. Continuation of Jerusalem violent conflict in Palestine absolutely is inhuman. It is indeed very disturbing for humanity. Interestingly, strategic shift happened with the Abraham Accord was achieved between United Arab Emirates, UIE, and Bahrain were respectively that pushing the normalization of diplomatic relation with Israel. The trend to be followed by other Arab countries, for example, maybe Sudan would become the fourth country along with the UIE, Morocco, and Bahrain to normalize ties with Israel as part of the US-backed Abraham Accord. Unfortunately, the accord that take the common belief of the Abrahamic religion, they are Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, regarding the role of Abraham as patriarch, seems forgetting the position of Palestinian people. Until today, even last week, we saw how Israel military attacked violently to Palestinian in the mosque compound of Masjid al-Aqsa. The Palestine issue, Indonesian government and its people keep consistent to support globally and locally for peaceful solution for the Palestine at all fronts. And as it is mandated by the Indonesian Constitution. Even Palestine issue has become domestic political issue in Indonesia, as we seen in election campaign and later the dramaturgy of FIFA World Cup U20. So, in this forum, it is very important forum and we totally support this forum. I do hope we can discuss ideas and thought to promote for peaceful resolution for Palestine in the backdrop of complexity of Palestinian in the trajectory of Arab-Israel conflicts. It is matter of responsibility for humanity to help our brother of Palestine, while we need to consider the approach that based on humanity, just and civilized manner. Finally, again, I would like to extend our hand to Nahdlatul Ulama and maybe also Muhammadiyah that involving many elements to conduct this majlis of episteme of humanity for conflict transformation for peaceful Palestine and new brief world. Shukran. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Professor. You may return to your seat. Next, please welcome the Palestinian ambassador to the Republic of Indonesia, His Excellency Mr. Zuhair Al-Shun, for his opening speech. Your Excellency, the podium is yours.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good afternoon, His Excellency Mr. Yahya Khalil Stakov, His Excellency Abdul Qadir Jilani, His Excellency the Rector of the Islamic University, our brothers participants who are not able to mention his name, but everybody is respected for me. Our brother, the Ambassador of Arab Diplomatic Deen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Palestine is having one speech, cannot be two. So the major speech, it will be by our guests who are coming from Palestine, from Ramallah, officially have been invited to talks about the subject today. Thanks, Excellency, for your remarks and for your speech, which is very important, and we respect it, and we are hoping that what's have been mentioned can be implemented by our neighbor Israeli side. First of all, allow me on behalf of Palestinian people and their leaders, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude and appreciation to the government of the Republic of Indonesia, as well as to the Nahdat al-Ulama for continuous support for Palestinian people. As I would like to express my thanks and appreciation to the organization committee for inviting us to take the floor and to talk in this dialogue that carries a significant topic about the building peace between Palestine and Israel on the basis of Sunni Islamic George Bodenson for global civilization. Ladies and gentlemen, I am regretfully to inform you that His Excellency Mr. Mahmoud al-Habbash, advisor to the President of Palestine on religious affairs and Islamic relations, and Supreme Judge of Palestine, cancelled his official visit to Indonesia to attend this program due to the political situation in Palestine, which compelled him to remain in Palestine, and he appointed a Sheikh Muhammad Azam to represent him to talk about in a program that had been scheduled in Indonesia. Brothers, sisters, this dialogue is really very important, and we hope that the message can be reached all over the world, and especially for our neighbor. Everybody knows that our hand for peace, and we are working for peace, but real peace. Real peace, which it gives us sovereignty and self-determination, independence with East Jerusalem. With East Jerusalem, Yasser Arafat, rahimahullah, he lost his life because of East Jerusalem. He never accepted to sign with Yahud Barak, Camp David II, to take all over 95% of West Bank and leave Jerusalem. He refused. And he said, I will die without accepting that. All international community and Islamic countries, especially Indonesia, are standing with us for that. Jerusalem is deadline. When Trump mentioned that unity state for Israel, East and West Jerusalem, Indonesia condemned and gave a strongly message through the ambassador of the United States here to Trump that it has been refused completely, cannot be accepted at all. So This is our strategy. This is what we are working for, that Excellency. And I hope our brother Stako, with his link, with his dealing, can also be with us and work for that to be implemented. Mahmoud Abbas, our president, is working for that, and we are ready to reach for the peace. But you are now seeing what's happening in Jerusalem and in the Holy Land of Palestine as a whole, especially in this holy month of Ramadan. Looking, Excellency, for successful program, good message and outlook, and good result. Wish you all successful. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you, Your Excellency. You may return to your seat. Next, we would like to invite His Excellency Kiai Haji Yahya Khalil Stakuf to the podium for an introductory statement. Your Excellency, the stage is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah wa syukurillah wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah Sayyidina Maulana Muhammad ibn Abdullah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa mawalah. Amma ba'd, Honorable Rector of Triple IU, the university with a lot of eyes, Professor Dr. Komarudin Hidayat, Honorable Ambassador of State of Palestine, His Excellency Zuhair Ashun, and his dear colleague, Ambassador of Morocco, His Excellency, our honorable guest, His Excellency Fadlat Sheikh Muhammad Abul Hafiz Azam, تشرفنا بحضوركم. Distinguished speakers, my dear friend Hadratul Sheikh Abdul Qadir Al Jailani, Qaddasallahu Sirrah, the Director General of Asia Pacific of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia, distinguished participants. Firstly, I have to thank the Indonesian International Islamic University for extending its hospitality to host these meetings, and also the family of the university who kindly welcome us in this new but great university. And also thank you, His Excellency Ambassador Asun and Sheikh Muhammad Azam for the generosity to take all the difficulties, to come to Indonesia for this. A couple of months ago, in early January, 6th of January, Nahdlatul Ulama held an international conference of ulamas that we call the International Mu'tamar, or Conference of Islamic Jurisprudence on Civilization, or Fiqh al-Hadara. The purpose, the idea to hold the conference is to find a legal position, to find a formulation about Islamic legal position, meaning the position from the perspective of Sharia on the civilizational constructs that we are living today, which is the result of a fundamental and also dramatic change in the history of our civilization, our global civilization. We had a short discussion with our friends before this open meeting. We have discussion in the rectorate room among the speakers there, and I raised questions. If we think about the problem of Palestine, I think what the first key thing we need to do is to find where to start. And my dear friend here, Pak James Dorsey, gave us a very, very interesting, but I believe is a very sharp answer to this. He said we have to start by encouraging the people that to believe. We have to start by welcome. We need to start by encouraging people to believe that a solution is possible. So that's a very, very interesting answer, because it's a situation now we have less people believing that any solution is possible for this problem. All we are hearing day to day is just statement. The very same statement put out over and over and over again without anybody talking about a real plan toward solution. And it is interesting that our friend James Dorsey is seeing that as the breakdown in our belief for solution. Do we really believe that a solution is possible? That's the fundamental question for this. Now, what Nahdlatul Ulama is trying to do, actually, is to find an offer that can be seen as something contribute to the solution, so that people hopefully will then may see that somewhere there is a solution. Nahdlatul Ulama is doing the efforts by first understanding the nature of the problem. The way we see it, the problem, you see, we are seeing the problem of humanity, the problem of global civilization, which the Palestine problem is part of it. It is in the whole picture of global civilizational problem. And everybody now are seeing that we actually truly see a big problem there, a civilizational problem for our humanity altogether. Now, Nahdlatul Ulama, through a long, difficult, and in many parts uh, a painful discussion about the matter, we reached a solution, a conclusion. We reached to a conclusion that it is the problem that we are all having now is related to the emergence of a new civilizational construct that international community are trying to forge after the long history of conflicts and wars. You see, before what we have today as a construct of a nation state and an international order is actually something very new, less than 100 years. Nahdlatul Ulama is certainly older than this new international order itself. And we know that Nahdlatul Ulama is older than the Republic of Indonesia. So this construct of a nation state is something new. If you think about the existence of Israel and Palestine, where did it start to exist? Before its existence, before the existence of the state of Palestine, what we had was the Ottoman Empire. There was no Israel, there was no Palestine, there is no Saudi Arabia, there is no Jordan, Kingdom of Jordan, there was no Kingdom of Morocco. What we had before that was the whole Ottoman Empire. And starting the breakdown, the collapse of this empire, that we, then started to work on creating new constructs of social political system that we want for ourselves. We started, the people of Morocco then, they started to develop their own nation state, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Kingdom of Jordan, and so forth, including Indonesia. So, and then all these things then were framed into one international order, which is ruled by what we call the United Nations Organization. So we believe that understanding this nature is a key point. And starting from there, we can move forward. We can look for a way forward, starting from this understanding. That's why what we had in the 6th of February, the last February, we put out some, Sharia questions to the ulamas, because we are Islamic organization. Our domain is Islamic issues. Our organization is organization of ulamas, of Islamic scholars, who are supposed to address any kind of problem from the point of view of ulama, the point of view of Sharia. That's why then we put out some questions to the ulamas about this. Our questions were, first, is it legal from the perspective of Sharia? The United Nations Charter as an international consensus, as a you know as an akad in Sharia term. This is an akad. Is the akad, is the United Nations Charter as international consensus, meaning as an act among a consensus among various nations, legit in the eye of Sharia. And then were the heads of nations who represented their people, including Muslim people in each respective nation, were legitimate representative from the point of view of Sharia again. Were they legitimate representative for Muslim people in their country? If we're talking about Indonesia, for example, since Indonesia is a Muslim majority country, so the question is like not relevant, because the leader was Muslim. Sukarno was a Muslim, and the people of Indonesia were a majority Muslim. But then we have a question, for example, was Jawaharlal Nehru, when he signed the United Nations Charter as the leader of India, was he, from the point of view of Sharia, a legitimate representative for Indian Muslims, so that Indian Muslims were legitimately represented in the consensus, in the transaction of consensus that happened at the time. Now, from the conference that we had in Surabaya on the 6th of February, we got the answers from the ulama that, first, the United Nations Charter was legit as a consensus, as a muamalah transaction, was legit. And the head of the countries, the nations, who represented the people of each respective nations, were also legitimate, a legitimate representative for the respective the nation, the people of respective nations, including the Muslim citizens in the nation. So Jawaharlal Nehru was seen as a legitimate representative in the eye of Sharia for Indian Muslims that time, so that Indian Muslims were also represented when the deal for the international consensus was made. We believe this is a start. we still have, all kinds of problem with it. But this is a start. What we are aiming to move forward then with this is a transformation in the mindset of Muslim community about our world. That we are now living in a new construct of civilization, which is fundamentally different from what we had before. So we need to change the way we see the reality. So, for example, when we look at the problem of Israel Palestine, we simply cannot see it as a problem of uh, uh, religious struggle between Islam and Judaism. It's not. We believe that we need to see the all humanity cannot do not have uh, other choices than to think about uh, our existence as one. This problem of Israel Palestine, we I've never been struggling with Palestinian people in Palestine. I've never been involved in the battle, any battle there, any war. I've never fight any Israeli person. So I cannot pretend uh, to truly understand what the Palestinians are feeling. The feeling of suffering that they have. I cannot pretend to fully understand it. But I am a human being. I'm a human being like others. So I can imagine. I can only imagine. And just imagining the pain, imagining the bitterness, it's almost unbearable. But we need not to limit, the significance of this problem to just problems between Palestinian people and uh, and the Israelis. No, we need to see this problem as the problem of all humanity because it hurts. It hurts everybody. It hurts not just the Palestinian. It hurts us in Indonesia actually, and I know this hurts people everywhere. I've been, uh, you know, in many parts of the world, and I can see the trace of this problem hurting everybody everywhere. So we need to see this as a problem of all humanity. And as Muslims, especially Nahdlatul Ulama as an Islamic organization, we need to think about how Islam can contribute to this problem. If Islam doesn't have anything to offer to these problems of humanity, then what? What is Islam for? What is Islam for? So we need to think about it. And we claim Islam as the religion of peace for all creation. Then what Islam should answer for this? So this is a journey. We know this is a long and very, very difficult path we need to go, but we intend to start. And we already had this conference. Now we offer, especially the academic circles, academic community in Indonesia, please join us in this discourse, because this discourse matters for all of us. If we can find something to start with it, then we might regain the belief that somewhere there is a solution, that a solution is possible for us, possible for the problem of humanity, possible for the problem of Palestine. Inshallah. May Allah Almighty be always with us. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله وهو الموفق إلى أقوم الطريق والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for the wonderful speech. We can now enter the panel discussion. We have 5 prominent and distinguished speakers here with us today, starting with Kiai Haji Yahya Khalil Stakuf, the General Chairman of Nahdlatul Ulama, Mr. Muhammad Abdul Hafiz Yusuf Azam, the Sharia judge at the Ramallah Sharia Court of the Palestinian Authority, Mr. Abdul Qadir Jailani, Director General for Asia Pacific and Africa Affairs from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Indonesia, Mr. Imam Adarukutni, Head of the Institute for International Relations and Cooperations from Muhammadiyah, Dr. James M. Dorsey, award-winning journalist and senior fellow from the National University of Singapore's Middle East Institute. Please welcome these 5 panelists to begin their discussion, and Dr. Phillips J. Fermonte, the Dean of the IIIU Faculty of Social Sciences, as the moderator to chair this session. Dr. Vermonte, the time is yours.
Thank you, Farul. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good afternoon, everyone. It is an honor for me to chair the session of difficult to tackle topics. And I think a number of caveats I'd like to make before we start the discussion. Number one, this conflict between Israeli and Palestinian had occurred even before I was born. I was born in the 70s. I survived the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and now the problem seems to be heightening, as if there is no way out to the problem. So the caveat will be, in this discussion, keep your head cool, because from this one discussion, I believe there will be no solution. But we highlight what Gus Yahya and James Dorsey mentioned earlier, that we should always start and find a starting point to restart the discussion on peace. Number two, the caveat, especially for students and myself as a student of international relations, is that we are used to discuss and find the causes of war, right? All the literature filled with these things and discussions about the causes of war. Now, the caveat for this discussion is that we are looking for the causes of peace. So, to be productive, please always think, as Gus Yahya already called upon us, always try to find the causes for peace, not for war. I think that's the 2 caveats that I'd like to mention before we start. Now, we have 5 speakers within 1 hour span. So, as a chair of this difficult topics, I think I have to be somehow stern as well. Each speaker will be allocated 10 minutes at most. Please follow the time. Otherwise, the speakers might be cut off, because it's hard for me to stop you from speaking from here. So 10 minutes per speaker, and then there will be some question and answer at the end of the session after the speakers. Now, for the first speaker, we have His Excellency Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Hafiz Yusuf Azam. He is the Sharia judge at the Ramallah Sharia Court, Palestinian Authority. Thank you for flying over to Indonesia, and the stage is yours.
السلام عليكم. رمضان مبارك. أود أن أتحدث باللغة العربية لأهمية هذا الموضوع والكلمات والآيات التي سأتحدث بها، لأن الحديث في هذا الأمر بخلاف اللغة العربية يخرج الموضوع عن سياقه.
Excuse me, Sheikh. There will be a translator. So if you could.
Somebody translate?
Yes, somebody will translate.
First, I want to conduct this conversation in Arabic because there are many words and concepts that should be precised in Arabic. Otherwise, the discussion would be out of context.
أولا أشكر دولة إندونيسيا والقائمين على هذه الجامعة الذين قاموا باستضافتنا في هذا المكان وفي هذا الشهر المبارك.
I would also like to thank the state of Indonesia and all the responsibles in this university for welcoming us today.
موضوع هذا المؤتمر وعنوان هذا المؤتمر عنوان ضعيف مضلل، فيه تضليل نوعا ما وغير واضح هذا العنوان وغير متكافئ.
The title of this forum is unclear and ambiguous, and it's a little bit taking the idea from its correct direction.
عندما نتحدث ونقول أن موضوع هذا المؤتمر هو صنع السلام أو السلام ما بين الإسرائيلي والفلسطيني من منظور فقهي، فهذا موضوع ضعيف وسأبين لماذا.
Telling that we're going to talk about peace between Israel and Palestine from jurisprudence point of view is ambiguous, and I'm going to explain why.
أولا في هذا العنوان أنا أساوي بين الجلاد والضحية، أساوي بين الذي احتل الأرض وشرد الآلاف من العائلات والأسر خارج فلسطين ومخيمات اللجوء تشهد في لبنان والأردن وسوريا وغيرها من الدول.
This title is making Israel and Palestine in the same equal. It is putting the oppressor and the oppressed in the same balance. It is ambiguous, and it is taking the conflict out of direction because it is telling that Israel, the one that made many people refugees in Lebanon, in Syria, and other countries, make it equal to Palestine, the oppressed one.
في هذا العنوان أساوي بين الذين وصفهم الله في سورة الإسراء بالمفسدين وبالإفساد في قوله سبحانه وتعالى: وقضينا إلى بني إسرائيل في الكتاب لتفسدن في الأرض مرتين ولتعلن علوا كبيرا، وبين الذين انتهكت أرضهم واستبيحت ديارهم.
In this title, we are qualifying the oppressor, which is Israel, that has been called by God in Surah Al-Isra to be the people who ruin the land, who ruin the lives with the oppressed people of Palestine.
جئتكم من فلسطين والمسجد الأقصى يدنس يوميا كما تشاهد على وسائل الإعلام. جنود لا قبل لهم يدخلوا على المصلين في شهر رمضان وفي غير رمضان ويقوموا بالاعتداء والضرب والتنكيل بالمصلين.
I came from Palestine where the Aqsa Mosque is being violated by the state of Israel and the Zionists, where people are being killed and violated by the oppressed people of Israel.
وزير إسرائيلي يلقي محاضرة في فرنسا ويضع علم أو صورة خارطة تاريخ فلسطين التاريخية والأردن. هذا الشعب وهذا رؤية حكومية فاشية إلى التهام المزيد والمزيد والمزيد من الأراضي وطمس الغير وإنكار الغير وأنه غير موجود. فهو ينكر أن هنالك شعب يسمى شعب فلسطين ويريد أن يحتل الأردن ويعملها خارطة إسرائيل الكبرى.
I saw the minister of Israel in France presenting the roadmap of Palestine with Jordan to be a part of Israel. This is an attempt to step on the people of Palestine and excluding them from the world map and the people of Jordan as well.
بن جبير وزير الأمن الداخلي الذي يدعو جهارا نهارا إلى ترانسفير الفلسطينيين من فلسطين وإلى قتل الفلسطينيين وملاحقتهم أينما كانوا دون رحمة ودون احترام، مصادرة الأراضي، توسيع المستوطنات، إنكار الغير. هم يقولون بأنه لا يوجد هنالك شعب اسمه شعب فلسطين.
The Minister of Internal Safety of Israel is calling for killing the Palestinians and excluding them from the world map to tell that there are no people, no Palestinians in this world.
الحل ما هو الحل؟ هنالك العديد والعديد والعديد من القرارات الدولية التي استدارت وأدارت ظهرها إسرائيل لهذه القرارات الدولية وأنها تتصرف بأنها دولة فوق القانون لا أحد يلجمها، كل شيء مباح لها، تستطيع أن تفعل ما تشاء ومتى تشاء دون محاسبة. قتل الأطفال، قتل النساء، قتل الشيوخ دون مساءلة من العالم ودون محاسبة. إسرائيل تتصرف دولة فوق القانون.
The state of Israel is acting like a state that is above the international law. It is killing Palestinians, stepping on them without any judgment from the international community.
لذلك هنالك القرارات الدولية التي بيّنت بأن أساس ولادة إسرائيل، شهادة الميلاد لإسرائيل، هي كانت دولة عربية ودولة يهودية في فلسطين التاريخية، ثم قرار العودة وقرار الانسحاب عام 67 وغيرهم من الكثير من القرارات التي أدارت ظهرها إسرائيل لهذه القرارات ولم تأبه بهذه القرارات. عنواننا شرعيتنا هو رئيسنا وحكومتنا التي وشعبنا الذي هو أحق بأن يعاد له هذا الحق المسلوب. منذ أكثر من 70 عاما يعاني هذا الشعب ويلات العذاب بسبب هذا الاحتلال الإسرائيلي الغاشم.
The state of Israel is neglecting many international decisions and the Palestine is suffering from oppression for 70 years, and the state of Israel is acting above the law, like it is a state above the law, and we are here to declare the sovereignty of our people of Palestine and our government.
الحل هو إحقاق الحق وإعادة الحق إلى أصحابه الطبيعيون. هذه فلسطين التاريخية كما قلنا كانت شهادة ميلاد إسرائيل هي دولتين، ومع ذلك قامت القيادة الفلسطينية في العام 93 بعمل اتفاقية سلام ما لبثت إسرائيل أن نقضتها مرات ومرات ومرات واستدارت لها.
There was a peace treaty that Israel always violated, and the solution is to return the right of the people who are oppressed in Palestine, because according to history, Israel is a combination of an Arab and Jewish country, and Israel is neglecting all these international decisions about the right of the Palestinian people.
أخيرا لا مجال للمساواة بين المحتل والذي احتلت أرضه، ولا مجال للمساواة بين أعتى قوة في العالم تملك أسلحة نووية وبين أناس كرويون بسطاء لا حول ولا قوة لهم. لا يوجد تكافؤ بين هاتين القوتين أو هذين الطرفين لكي أقول أن هنالك إمكانية لعمل أو تأصيل فقهي في الشريعة الإسلامية من أجل إيجاد ماذا؟ إيجاد تبريرات للاحتلال الإسرائيلي لما يقوم فيه في فلسطين التاريخية. وشكرا لكم.
And therefore, this title is ambiguous because it's qualifying to the oppressor and the oppressed to be the same thing. And the same thing. And there is no way to say that there is something from Sunni doctrine to make peace, because this title cannot be accepted. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency, for your thoughtful and for reinstating the state of affairs from the perspective of Palestine. And with regard to the topic, I think we can always discuss that later on. And I think it's also useful to clarify the title as well before we discuss any hope for peace with regard to the Israeli and Palestinian conflict. Now, I'd like to invite again K. Yahya Khalil Stakuf to share his view about this topic. And maybe if you could spare some time to respond to the question asked by His Excellency Mohammed Yusuf Azam regarding the topic. 10 minutes is yours, Gus.
Thank you, Fadilat Sheikh. The topic is not to have a Sharia judgment on Palestine nor Israel. It's not about that. It's about the framework of international order that should be applied as a framework in pursuing the solution for the problem. See, we do not want to say that it is okay for Israel to oppress the Palestinians. It's not that. What we believe we need to review is, if we fight, what do we fight for? Because out there are people who keep articulating that we, among some groups in Muslim community, they keep articulating that Muslim should fight for Islam and destroying others, and that there is no solution, no possible solution except by destroying and eliminating others. And this is the position of, the position that comes from the old construct of civilization that we had before this current uh, international order. Indonesia was under the occupation of the Dutch before, and we fight for it. And what made possible for Indonesia to stand tall as an independent nation, to continue its existence as an independent nation, has been this international order. Without this international order, if the world, the international community allow the Dutch to continue fighting Indonesia with its power, with the Dutch's power of military and economy, Indonesia would, uh, likely would lose the fight. The Dutch could not continue occupying Indonesia because the international order, does not allow them to. So if the international community would apply the same principle to the problem of Palestine, then hopefully we would reach the same result, which is independence for each nation, because this is the fundamental construct of our current global civilization. And without this, what we would have would be chaos. That's why allowing the problem of Israel and Palestine to continue means risking global chaos. Because if this principle of international order is not respected, then this, the stability, this global security would not mean anything anymore. And people can come back to, where each group fight others at all costs, and the, the only way to survive is just to destroy others. This is the thing that we don't want to happen. And the reason why Nahdlatul Ulama put this question as a Sharia question is because we believe that Muslims need to embrace a new mindset in seeing the reality of our global civilization. We believe that it is important for Muslim, to see the future of our civilization not about, destroying others and surviving alone as Muslims, but it's about to share a truly just and harmonious international orders that will, um, protect all humanity. And the United Nations Charter we see is important because we have two fundamental ideas. fundamental ideas that matter there. First, the idea of international borders. The international community should respect international border. So we need to really have a clear definition about where is the borders of each nation. Indonesia, we have already our territorial border. International community should respect it. We should have the same thing for Palestine. And the second thing is that in the United Nations Charter, we have the principle of equal human dignity among, every nation. It is not allowed for, a, a group of identity or a nation to subjugate others, because we all we all have equal dignity. I think this is the principle that we want to continue campaign for. Once we convince people about the importance of this principle, then hopefully then the people will see that this is a pathway toward solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Gus Yahya. I think that's a powerful argument about the nature of conflicts between Israeli and Palestinian. And I think it's a nice segue to our next speaker, because Gus Yahya in many ways alluded this problem to sovereignty problem as well as humanity problem. And when we are talking about sovereignty, international law, and then of course we should discuss the United Nations and how United Nations actually can be one actor that we can hope for to provide some kind of a protection of the principle of sovereignty, as Gus Yahya was mentioning in his response to Sheikh Muhammad Yusuf Azam earlier. Now, we have a very able speaker representing the Indonesian government of our foreign ministry to have some say about this. What would be the Indonesian position towards United Nations as far as the problem of Israeli and Palestinian conflicts is concerned? Excellency, floor is yours.
Thank you, Pak Philip Vermonte. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Pak Rektor, Pak Komarudin Hidayat, Pak Yahya Stakuf, thank you so much for having me today. I think this is a good opportunity for me to come to this campus. This is my first time. Thank you. And Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Hafiz Azam, welcome in Jakarta. And His Excellency Ambassador Zuhair Al-Shun, and His Excellency Ambassador Waida bin Abdullah, and Pak Imam Darukutni, my friends, nice to see you again, Pak, and Mr. James Dorsey. It is indeed a great honor for me to come to this Ramadan forum hosted by PBNU and UIII. The topic of this forum, of course, is very much interesting issue that we may discuss at length. As in one hand, many may argue that religion has been used as a barrier to realize peace in the Palestinian conflict, as indicated by Pak Kiai Yahya Stakuf. However, on the other hand, we have heard today in this forum that we need to develop a religious vision that could provide a stronger moral ground for achieving just, lasting, and genuine peace in the conflict. Having said that, once again, I really commend the initiative of UIII and Nahdlatul Ulama for organizing this important forum. Brothers and sisters, previous speakers have outlined some aspect of the conflict, including the role of Islamic jurisprudence in bringing the peace in the region. In this opportunity, let me briefly touch upon another aspect of the conflict as suggested by Pak Philip. It is a perspective of foreign policy and a perspective of international law, and I hope this perspective can be a good starting point, as pointed out by Pak Philip. Ladies and gentlemen, it is beyond doubt that standing for Palestinian cause is the soul of Indonesian foreign policy. I think no one can question that. This unshakable position is not solely about religious solidarity. It's beyond that. It is about speaking up with humanity. It is about fulfilling constitutional mandate. The preamble of our Constitution categorically stresses that the independence is an inalienable right of all nations. For that reason, any form of colonialism must be abolished, as it is against the principle of humanity and justice. Indonesia has done its best in utilizing its diplomatic machinery to support the Palestine. History has recorded how we have been playing instrumental role in consolidating the international support for Palestine, not only through United Nations, but also through OIC and other relevant forums. Indonesia is one of the few countries that has been consistent. One of the few countries, I'm stressing it once again, that has been consistent on its support for the struggle of the Palestinians towards its independence. I remember in 2021, President Joko Widodo made a phone call with the President Mahmoud Abbas. President Joko Widodo has stated that despite the current geopolitical dynamic in the Middle East, Indonesia will not take any step to normalize relations with Israel until the lasting and comprehensive peace between the people of Palestine and Israel has been realized. This message has been well received, including by the President Mahmoud Abbas, who clearly appreciate the such strong strength of Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, we were told to be more pragmatic in approach to the Palestinian issue in order to seek acceptance of Israel to our role as a mediator to the conflict. To Indonesia, what really matters is not merely diplomatic statecraft. In this case, nothing is more important than ensuring all the rights of all Palestinians are respected and fulfilled. International law has made it clear that any form of Israeli occupation is illegal, considering that any acquisition of land by the use of force is not acceptable by international law, especially by the UN Charter. The Palestinian self-determination, as well as the right to return, are also beyond question under the international law. Nothing in international law justifies the continuing development of Israeli illegal settlement. All states are under international obligation not to recognize such illegal situation. For that reason, Indonesia is not in the position to accept any approach that will acquit the Israel occupation and deny the rights of Palestinians. Once again, we are not seeking diplomatic statecrafts in the expense of humanity and the respect of rule of international law. Ladies and gentlemen, please be informed that Indonesia, along with other countries, particularly Islamic countries, have successfully pushed a UNGA resolution requesting the International Court of Justice advisory opinion on the legal consequences from the Israeli occupation of the Palestinian territory. The government of the Palestine has officially requested us to play active role in this process. At this opportunity, I wish to confirm that Indonesia is prepared to do its best in the upcoming proceeding. I'm intentionally stressing this fact just in order to help us to have a better picture and understanding on the fundamental importance of safeguarding the interests of the Palestinians under international law. Ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia has been consistently supporting the peace process toward a two-state solution based on internationally agreed parameters. Before we are coming to this room, we had some informal chat among ourselves. It was suggested that maybe the two-state solution is quite difficult to be achieved. Some people might be pessimistic, even among the Palestinians themselves, because the prolonging occupation is very bad, the situation on the ground. It is true, but once again, this is the only option available on the table. So we have no other option. If we really want to support the Palestinians, we don't have other option better than this, because to have two-state solution, which is not just solution, it's not lasting solution, it's not genuine solution, it is not a feasible solution. And such two-state solution should fulfill some internationally recognized parameters. And the parameters will be as follows. The first is the border of state Palestine shall include the border before 1967, which include Gaza, West Bank, and Jerusalem. And there should be security arrangement that respect the sovereignty of the Palestine. And on the issue of resolution of the Palestinian refugee question, the right of the return is very important. Therefore, the development of Israeli settlement should be stopped. And a solution which, once again, a solution which is not just and genuinely address the interests of the Palestinians will not be desirable solution, as it won't last. Finally, I would like to conclude once again to emphasize that the commitment of the Republic of Indonesia to continue our support for the cause of the Palestinian based on these parameters. Once again, we will not support any initiative that benefit Israel, as such initiative will only weaken the bargaining position of our Palestinian brothers and sisters. I thank you so much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for reiterating Indonesia's position on the question of Palestine. And it seems to me that what the Indonesian government has been doing, according to Pa Abdul Qadir Jailani, is in line with what Gus Yahya was mentioning about. That is, we respect the sanctity of the principle of sovereignty and international law. And on top of that, it's a question of humanity. Now, it's great to have here two largest Islamic organization in Indonesia. Gus Yahya, of course, the chair of Nahdlatul Ulama. The second largest is Muhammadiyah. And we are lucky to have Excellency Imam Adarukutni, head of the Institute of International Relations and Cooperation of the Muhammadiyah Central Board. The stage is yours.
Yeah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah haqqa hamdih wa ba'da hamdillah bi jami'i mahamidih. Sallallahu wa salamu ala khairi khalqi sayyidina Muhammadin nabiyyihi wa rasulihi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa alayna jami'an min tabi'ihi wa atba'ihi wa ba'du. Most respectable Al-Sheikh, Al-Doctor, Al-Hajj, Yahya Stakuf, the president of the Nahdlatul Ulama, the Central Board of Nahdlatul Ulama, and Mashayikh from Palestine, Dr. Muhammad Haslam, and I would like to firstly avail myself of this great moment and opportunity to thank this my position here, being seated here together with the both celebrated people, Excellency Ambassador of the Morocco and Excellency Ambassador of Palestine, Excellency Rector Professor Komaruddin Hidayat, and Brother Excellency Director General and also Ambassador Abdul Qadir Al Jilani, and the speaker, thank you. First, I think this title, as for me, according to me, is very, very tickling and flirtatious. Then they're very creative of the Nahdlatul Ulama as usual, you know. This is the unprecedented title to talk in the international forum, and this is the first step, I think. What I conceive of this jurisprudence, it is not merely about the legal opinion, but it is also the thoughtful of theological perspective too. I consider this, as Al-Ghazali also means, the fiqh is not only the legal aspect, but it also the Sufi and so on and so forth. So I would like to try to approach this from, as the title is more about the Sunnite civilization, the approach of the Sunnite civilization. If we consider all, I mean, from the perspective of the Judaism, Christianism, and also Christianism, and also from the Sunnite perspective, that Abraham, alayhi salatu wassalam, is our common ancestor. Abraham came from the land of Mesopotamia, if I'm not mistaken. Not only about Abraham, but the descendants of Abraham, like the Sulaiman too, as mentioned in the Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, number 102. واتبعوا ما تتلو الشياطين على ملك سليمان وما كفر سليمان ولكن الشياطين كفروا يعلمون السحر وما أنزل على الملكين ببابل هاروت وماروت. This verse mentioned also the Babel. Babel is Babylonia, and this is the land of the Abraham. And then the roots of the Abraham journey, the journey, not only the spiritual journey, but it is the journey of the history or the journey of the civilization. And to some extent, it is also the Sunni doctrine of this civilization. So this journey of Abraham from the Ur of the land of Babylonia to Syria to Palestine, at that time, the ancient Palestine, there had been the indigenous inhabitants, and continues to Egypt. In Egypt, Abraham, together with his very enchanting wife, Sarah, then she, of course, because of this beauty, the Pharaoh highly enchanted and falling in love with Sarah, with the beauty. But anytime he tried to, before this, Abraham whispers to Sarah to say that she is a sister. But unfortunately, as Pharaoh tried to get her, he gets epilepsy or something happened. So Sarah remains very clean. And then the Pharaoh let Abraham to take her, and additionally also the Pharaoh give him, Abraham, the mate, the beautiful mate. Okay, and the following, because of the overyears, the Sarah cannot give Abraham a child. Then Sarah let Abraham to marry his mate. Yeah, to marry. So, but after getting pregnancy, Hajar looks like to be very, maybe according to the Sarah perspective, she's look proud, or maybe, the high profile of his personal personality, like that, confidence. So, but it is very, making an offense to Sarah. So then Sarah said to Abraham, "Why didn't I let you to take her as your wife? And now she acts so proudly. Then I don't like this," and so on and so forth. Okay, I want her to be put aside or long far from here, and so on and so forth. And shortly speaking, that Sarah gave birth a child. Then it is and named Ishmael. Ishmael mean that Esma is here listed. The Eli is the God. So Ismail is the one because of the listed or heard dua of Ibrahim by Allah. Then Ismail. This is the Hebrew language. Over the years, Sarah then got pregnant, and also gave a child Ishaq. Ishaq then gave a descendant, a Yahudi, and so on and so forth. And because of the jealousy between Sarah and Ishmael and Hajar, then this is about the case of between the bad relations between Islam and Jews because of the factor of jealousy. That is why that the Jews associated as the mother's child, not so like the Muslim, for example, that we are associated to our father. We are the children of father, but the Judaism is the children of their mother. Why? Because Sarah says you are mom's kid, you are mom's children, and so on. And that is why, as of today, that Muslim and Judaism intensively cut bickering each other. And with this, the more often they got bickering or brawl between Judaism and Islam, it shows that they are real brothers. The way the brothers within one home and one family, they got brawl very often, not with their the neighborhood brothers, with their friends, and that's why from this perspective that the title of jurisprudence, as the way we take a look of we consider the interrelation between Muslim and Judaism, and also the Christian, is very possible to, for example, to make them to be blended together as a brothers, not as an enemy to each other. This is what I mean with the relevance of this title too, and we try to keep. And the second, this is the one point, and the second is the from the point of the symbol of the Judaism, for example. This is a David star, of the symbol of the Judaism. If we try to defabricate the symbol, it will consist of two arrows, the downward arrow and the upward arrow. So it is precisely the same with the spirit of Islam. If you get close to God, Allah will get close to you. And also, after the unity, it's like the form of the David star. So it is the Wahdatul Wujud, the way Islam considered this. That is the point. So, to some extent, that the claim of the Judaism that they are close to God is to some extent true, that they are closer to God than others. So this is the unity between man and God, between Abd and Ilah and Allah. So it is in the Javanese doctrine is Manunggaling Kawula Gusti and so on and so forth like that, as symbolized with the David star. And I think we should believe again, to some extent, the old adage of don't leave your children to their own devices. Why? Because they will always get brawl, fighting over their same toys. And this is our toys as Al-Aqsa. Judaism, Judaism, again, Christians say that you are a heresy with us because the model or the paradigm of the unity between God and human is different with the concept of the doctrine of the Judaism. Judaism is very close to Muslim. And that's all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you, Pak Imam Adarukutni. That's an interesting point of view. That essentially what Pak Imam said is that we are closer than we think we are. So must be some similarities rather than differences that we need to identify in order to find possible solution. Now, last but not least, we have Mr. James Dorsey, and he's a journalist, spent quite a long time in Southeast Asia, so understand the psyche and the political approach of many in Southeast Asia as well. I think he'd been living in Middle East as well, so he understands the psyche as well in the Middle East. And I believe you have some different point of view from your journalist point of view. Microphone is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Dignitaries, ambassadors, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Is this
Just
working?
closer.
And ladies and gentlemen, I was asked to approach this issue from a different perspective, particularly from the perspective of the role of religion in the conflict. Yeah, particularly from the role of religion in the conflict, and then particularly in terms of Jewish religious law. And as grateful as I am to Nahdlatul Ulama and to the university for inviting me, I fear you may have picked the wrong guy. I'm a political analyst. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not a religious scholar. But here I am. So let me start by picking up on what Pak Yahya said in terms of a vision for what role religion as such should play and what role Islam should play. From my perspective, having watched Nahdlatul Ulama for a number of years, the important thing, or for me, one of the most important things is that it's not just talk. Nahdlatul Ulama, and I may be putting words in Pak Yahya's mouth, and if so, I apologize. But Nahdlatul Ulama has started to what I would call religious reform, to enable religion to play a role in the 21st century by addressing within Islam what I think Pak Yahya would call obsolete and outdated tenets of the law. But I think equally importantly, and particularly for this conference is the fact that Nahdlatul Ulama is thinking in terms of religious reform, not only about Islam, but if indeed it can serve as a model, fundamentally all religions, and certainly the major religions, have problematic tenets, and those problematic tenets need to be addressed if one is going to move forward towards the kind of civilizational world that Yahya has spoken about. I think in the case of Judaism, this has become ever more evident, not just with the rise of the most far-right, ultra-nationalist, and religiously ultra-conservative government in Israel's history. It has also become more evident in the way Israel confronts the reality. This is where I differ with my friend, the reality that a two-state solution is no longer possible. And let me just very briefly state why I believe that. One of the core issues that would have to be resolved to create a two-state solution are the Israeli Jewish settlements on what would be Palestinian territory. There are only two solutions. You either agree that Israeli settlers would be subject. One, you have to agree on their status. Whose citizens are they? Second of all, you have to agree on what their status would be. In other words, would they be subject to Palestinian law? And frankly, if they are subject to Palestinian law, then you actually have, at least in one of the two states, a one-state solution. And if you don't agree to that proposition, you're going to have to move 750,000 people. Now, that may, in and of itself, not be a problem, but it will be civil war. And so that's why I no longer think, despite everybody paying lip service to the notion of state solution, that a two-state solution is possible. Now, coming back, so if my proposition is correct, then then we already have a one state. Leave aside the terms of it, but we have a one state. And so the notion of a one state is not implied in the discussion about Israeli withdrawal, is not a temporary solution. This is what it's going to be. And the issue is, what is that state going to be? And what should it be? And that's, I think, a reality that, sure, that's a reality that is very much part of what we're seeing happening in Israel and in Palestine at the moment. Now, obviously, the likelihood of the one-state solution's permanence has been decided by Israel itself, its self-defeating creation of facts on the ground. With other words, what I was talking about, the settlements, that by definition almost precludes the two-state solution. And it's also laid the groundwork for an exercise of Israeli sovereignty that is justified in Israeli or in Jewish terms by an ultra-religious nationalist and supremacist interpretation of Islamic law. Of Jewish religious law. It is an interpretation that resembles precepts of the militant Islamic State and is diametrically opposed to traditional notions of either a binational state in which communities enjoy cultural autonomy, or a civic state in which all have equal rights irrespective of ethnicity, religion, or race. The problem is there's now a third approach to a one-state solution. And that's the religious Zionist approach that brings into sharp relief problematic tenets of Jewish religious law, or the halakha. In effect, the emergence of a halachic approach, reinforced by the rise of the current government, is also a reflection of the failure of Zionism, the failure to create a state that caters to all Jews, irrespective of their religiosity or social, political, and religious views, rather than a state that is populated by a Jewish tribe that perhaps necessarily charts a course different from the majority of Jews who are not part of that state. The focus on Jewish religious law further offers explanations for the seemingly arbitrary, humiliating, and unnecessary brutality and harshness of the Israeli occupation of Palestinian lands. That can only be explained by tracing its roots to religious Jewish legal concepts. To be sure, elements of the influence of problematic Jewish legal concepts were embedded in Zionist and Israeli attitudes towards Palestinians from day one. Israeli-born scholar Gideon Shafir has charted what he describes as an evolution from a perceived secular Jewish privilege that justified a claim to Palestine based on religion, ethnicity, and/or race, to notions of Jewish supremacy rooted in Jewish religious law as articulated by members of Israel's current government and proponents of religious Zionism. In doing so, Shafir acknowledges that religion and religious law have taken center stage in Israeli claims to all of Palestine, which, much like what 9/11 did for Islam, puts Jewish legal precepts in the spotlight. For now, religious Zionism informs Israel's militant nationalist, ultra-religious, and settler communities. The degree to which that reflects public sentiments among a majority of the Israeli public remains unclear, even if recent mass protests against Prime Minister Netanyahu's judicial overhaul failed to take account of Israeli-Palestinian concerns. A recent Israeli television channel 13 opinion poll suggested that if elections were held today, Netanyahu's Likud party would lose 12 of its 32 seats in parliament. 71% of those polled said they believed that Netanyahu had performed poorly as prime minister. To be fair, ultra-nationalist and ultra-religious parties would fare somewhat better, losing only 5 of their 25 seats in parliament. In other words, they represent a committed minority of 20% of the Israeli public, of the primarily Israeli Jewish public, and a substantial minority, but nevertheless a minority. Even so, Netanyahu's current government, the most far-right in Israeli history, according to the polls, would not emerge from a new election with a parliamentary majority. The numbers are significant. Perhaps they can, beyond the perspective they cast on the trajectory of a hardening of Israeli policies on the occupied West Bank and Israel's borders with Gaza, Lebanon, and Syria. For now, the numbers suggest that religious ultra-conservatism has made significant inroads in reshaping religious Zionism, but has yet to secure a buy-in from Israel's majority secular and traditional electorate. Moreover, the emergence of religiously anchored concepts of Jewish supremacy has potentially far-reaching consequences for a resolution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, particularly as the fiction of a possible two-state solution disappears and Israelis and Palestinians accept that they are condemned to live with one another. The question is what impact that realization will have on Israeli public opinion, and more importantly, what kind of state it will imagine. Clearly, men like Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir and Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich envisioned a religious Jewish state grounded in Jewish religious law, in which ideally Palestinians would disappear, but more realistically would be discriminated, politically repressed, and second-class citizens. In hindsight, the evolution from secular towards religiously justified Jewish supremacy may have been inevitable. The evolution is characterized by the evolving emphasis on different religious texts. The secular labor movement and the left that initially dominated Israel for its first 2 to 3 decades sought religious grounding in the Talmud, the primary rabbinical source of religious law and theology. In contrast to the Tanakh, or the Hebrew Bible, the guiding text for religious Zionists, the Talmud focuses less on the history of Jewish life in the land of Israel in antiquity, which is what makes it a more guiding text for religious Zionists and ultranationalists like Ben-Gvir and Smotrich. The transition from privilege to supremacy was fueled by Israel's 1967 conquest of Arab lands and the rise a decade later of right-wing leader Menachem Begin, who envisioned the occupied West Bank as the biblical lands of Judea and Samaria, rather than the building blocks of a future Palestinian state. The tradition raised tricky legal questions for religious Zionists and rabbis. While the harsh commandments of conquest codified in Maimonides' 12th century Mishnah Torah barred a return to Arab sovereignty of occupied land, the status of the territory's inhabitants needed to be defined. Did they qualify as ger toshav, resident aliens? And if so, on what conditions? Were the residents idolaters? Or did they observe the 7 commandments of the son of Noah that constitute principles imposed on non-Jews? Did residents need to recognize Jewish sovereignty? If so, was it still necessary to make them wretched and humiliated in accordance with Maimonides' commandments? And how does one do that? What is the fate of the residents if they do not qualify as ger toshav and therefore have no right to remain on the territory? Israelis evaded answering these questions prior to the capture in 1967 of the West Bank, Gaza, and Jerusalem. They were effectively fudged as Israel tried to figure out how to deal with a non-Jewish minority. The willingness and ability to post-1967 continue to do so was fundamentally altered by the demographics of the conquest of land that held great significance for religious nationalists. Fudging issues was no longer an option. The conquest set off a process in Judaism not unlike the impact of the political and social involvement of Muslim religious forces in the search for a social order that accommodated both Islam and modernity with similar outcomes. Religious Zionism's halachic state is not that different from concepts of an Islamic state in political Islamic and jihadist thinking, both regarding what it means for the majority of the population as well as for minorities. The process of building support for notions of a Jewish or an Islamic theocracy involved ensuring that a politicized religion played an ever more important role in identity. Much like in the case of the Islamic State, politicization involved territorial ambition. In religious Zionist views of a Jewish state grounded in the halakha, this meant an Israel that controlled the land of ancient Israel in which there would be no place, certainly no equitable place, for non-Jews. Opportunity and necessity beckoned religious Zionism with the conquest of the 1967 war because control was no longer a theoretical issue. The commandment to inherit and settle the land of Israel could no longer be shoved to the sidelines. As a result, it was a battering ram in what was a struggle between religious Zionism's halakhic notions of the land of Israel versus the secular Zionist concepts of a state of Israel. It was a battle that was fought, unlike discussions in Islam about the nature of an Islamic state, in which legal debate about the rules that govern statecraft, warfare, and policies towards minorities had stagnated for more than a millennium because they were of no relevance to the Jewish community that did not control a state and or land of its own and was a minority in its own right. There was little, if anything, that religious Zionist rabbis could refer to that charted the immense changes in the structure and legitimacy of states since the codification of Jewish law by Maimonides in the 12th century. The codification represented a worldview that did not bode well for either Jews or non-Jews, certainly not in a 21st century world. Yet, Maimonides' 14-volume Magnus Opus constituted for the rabbis a legal ground zero. Maimonides codified Jewish concepts that had influenced Muslim legal thinking and were retained in Judaism and Islam, even though they were no longer appropriate or fit for purpose. The halachic notion of the ger toshav was not all that different from the notion of the dhimmi, but suddenly had taken on a relevance they had not had for 1,000 years. Like the dhimmi, the ger toshav was expected to pay tribute. Also, like the dhimmi, the ger toshav did not enjoy equal rights. Maimonides argued in favor of forms of subjugation of ger toshav that needed to be demeaning and humiliating. Residents were not allowed to lift their heads against Israel or be offered preferential treatment. Yet their well-being, through, for example, provision of health care, was needed to assure the preservation of social peace. The modern-day religious Zionist interpretation of these principles meant that no Israeli government had a right to return any conquered part of the land of Israel, whose ger toshav or residents would have to recognize Jewish sovereignty and Israel as a Jewish state. Refusal to do so would deprive them of the right to reside on the land, a principle that has been creeping its way into Israeli policies. All of this means, to sum things up, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has turned into a zero-sum game. It's us against them. A one-state solution with equal treatment and protections for all is no longer feasible if religious Zionism gets its way. Common wisdom has it that what is needed is pressure on Israel, particularly by the United States and Europe. No doubt, pressure helps. But ultimately, much like Nahdlatul Ulama has taken a lead in tackling head-on legal, ideological, and religious issues that make Islam part of the problem rather than part of the solution, Jews will have to do the same for Judaism. 9/11 put Islam's problems on the front burner. A situation in the occupied territories, and particularly in Jerusalem, that is spinning out of control, could have a similar effect in Judaism. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, James, for such a blunt assessment on what's been happening on the ground, electorally speaking, demographically speaking, but took us back to history, Maimonides' perception of the Jewish law, and so on and so forth. And I've been reading Gus Yahya in the past few years. Now I understand why he insists of transforming the discourse on the civilizational level. Because the last time Gus Yahya was here, he was thumping the podium, saying that we have to be frank about our own religion. That might be, or maybe we do have some problem with our thinking, regardless of the fact that we are Muslims or Jews or Christians, but let's be frank and find and transform what is possible for us to live side by side peacefully. And I think that's what has been the thinking, if I may read you correctly, Gus Yahya, of this civilizational discourse that has been proposing in the past few years. Now, we only have one very last question, if someone has, because otherwise we will not have time for iftar. Now, it will be very difficult for me. And I think this is self-critique as well for us. Maybe we have yet to include voices from female or male panels. So I'll point to our student Saima over there to ask your question very, very briefly. Please, Saima. Please be very brief.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you, respected guests, distinguished guests, and their excellencies. That was very enlightening and very fruitful. So here I have two questions. Number
Just
one.
One question.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna merge them both.
Please identify yourself, because the speakers might not know you.
Okay.
Yeah.
My name is Saima Shamim. I'm from Nepal, MA student in UIII. So my first question is, how can the challenge of reconciling Islamic ethics with modern moral predicaments contribute the prevalence of dishonesty and unethical behavior in context of Palestinian-Israeli conflict? And what steps can be taken to address these challenges and promote greater integrity and transparency in the pursuit of just and peaceful resolution to the conflict?
All right. Thank you,
And-
Saima. One question. All right. So I'll give the speaker each 1 minute, and maybe also closing statement of your, because there are other stuff going on. Please, maybe we can start from the right, Pak Imam Adar Putni, and then the.
Well, I've understand it. If I understand it, I think that stop saying or accusing of being enemies or killing and so on and so forth, but try to harmony between Palestine, Muslim people, in the spirit of Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. Say that they are brothers. We are brothers. Why? Because we have the same. We share the same ancestor, Abraham, and also the triangle of the symbol of the Judaism indicates the unity of God, and Islam. So is Islam and Christianity too, but the difference is also maybe the incarnation transformation in Christianity that makes the Judaism take a hard feeling with that, but not so with Islam. But Islam always considered to be very jealous about it. It is youngest brother for which that their mother is from Hagar, while the Judaism is from Sarah. How to compromise between Sarah and the Hajar? This is very difficult one. I think this is the way to further talk with this problem of the triangle: Judaism, Christian, and also Islam. And in addition to that, that the Syria and Meso Africa civilization also something to be factor of the solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Gus Yahya, because in a way, Gus Yahya, because
Yes, I will try. Now,
no, Gus Yahya, because you are the host as well. So
Okay.
I'll give you the last say.
Okay.
So, please pass. You first.
It remains Israel over the international law is the problem. To solve the problem, Israel must be as the other states in the world, to give the rights to the others, not to be over the international laws. Thank you.
Thank you. James?
Thank you. I think I'll leave the question of the application of Islamic law to others who are far wiser and knowledgeable than I am on that. I hate to end on a cynical or pessimistic note, but having covered ethnic and religious conflict and seen it from very close by for the last half a century, one lesson one learns is problems and conflicts only get resolved when the price not to resolve them becomes too high. And the unfortunate thing is that no matter what the suffering is that Palestinians are going through, the price is not yet that high that the conflict will not continue.
Thank you, James.
Thank you. Thank you. If you allow me, I wish to make a very brief final comment. Of course, I don't have any particular comment on the religious aspect because I'm not the expert in this area. Wahdatul Wujud is not my cup of tea, Pak. Okay. At this opportunity, I just really want to respond to you. I think this is quite good, open and frank discussion. I agree with your observation that a two-state solution is no longer possible for some. It will be indeed the case if it is indeed the case if we just allow the political necessity where might mixed rights comes into play. And I don't deny this effect of life. The reality on the ground shows that the future of the Palestinians is very bleak. I don't deny this. But for us, especially for Indonesia, who's standing up for the Palestine, still, this is not an option. Two-state solution based on internationally agreed parameters should be the only option available to us. I'm fully aware that despite the deep pessimism resulting from the logic of the political necessity, as we explained, we should be aware that Israel is currently also facing a great challenge of the moral justification for their occupation. They are facing the same problem. Even the problem is not as big as facing by the Palestinians, but they are also facing a big problem on the moral of justification. For that reason, the role of religious justification might be instrumental for them to justify. And that's why I really commend the effort made by Pa Yahya Sakuf through Nahdlatul Ulama. And another point that I would like to comment on with respect to this one, speaking about lack of the moral and legal justification. And this is one of the most fundamental rationales why countries in the UNGA Assembly pushed to have an advisory opinion to International Court of Justice just to make sure that Israel shall not enjoy any benefit from the crime that they have committed. So, despite the political reality, I think this is the only way for us to move forward. I thank you.
Thank you. Gus Yahya.
Yeah, thank you. People live what they believe. People walk toward a direction they believe they should go to. And now we are, the way I see it, humanity is stuck to a mindset about beliefs and faith that we inherit from the previous construct of human civilization, which is before the current construct of international order. That's why I know I'm a Muslim. I live in Muslim community. I know so many Muslim community are seeing this problem of uh, uh, Palestine-Israeli conflict is a problem of a existential problem, zero-sum existential problem between Islam and Judaism. That this is a problem of an ultimate goal for one side to eliminate others. I know this among Muslims. And from what I learned more and more, what's in the belief of many Orthodox Jewish people, at least, they have similar kind of mindset. From what we learned from the news about the attack to the Palestinian and West Bank by the Jewish settlers, which resulted in some people killed, according to some young Jewish people. And then there was a funeral for the Jewish, and there was a rabbi making a sermon, for the funeral. And what the rabbi said as the religious sermon in the funeral is this kind of mindset that this young Jewish died for the jihad of their version, This is a shahid for the Jewish, by attacking this Palestinian in the West Bank. So it's a mutual, it's like a mirror where people just think about people believe that the solution for their problem is to eliminate others. And this already become part of an established religious mindset and even institutionalized in religious doctrines. So we believe that among many other things that we have to do is we have to try to raise awareness among people about the new reality of civilization that we are living now, that demand us to change and embrace new way of thinking, embrace a new way to understand the meaning of our own religion, and to believe even more for a better future for all humanity and not just our own group of religion.
Thank you. I think we've come to an end of our very frank, blunt, bleak, pessimistic discussion. But of course, as Gus Yahya mentioned earlier in his remarks, that we always need to strive and find peacemaker among the pessimists. And that with that, I'd like to close the session. And let's give once again round of applause to our great five speakers. Thank you. I'll return the microphone to our MC.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vermonte, for having chaired the panel discussion. Again, our gratitude should go to all the panelists for their brilliant discussion and diverse yet powerful perspectives during the forum. We also appreciate all attendees for participating and truly apologize for only giving an opportunity to ask only one question for the attendees here. So now we would like to invite Dr. Ilyas Marwal to recite a quick prayer. Dr. Ilyas, the podium is yours.
أيها السادة والسيدات، أيها الحضور الكريم والمدعون الأفاضل، أحييكم بتحية السلام. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. ختاما لهذا المنتدى الرمضاني الذي تنظمه الجامعة الإسلامية العالمية الإندونيسية بالتعاون مع جمعية نهضة العلماء. تعالوا أن ندعو الله سبحانه وتعالى سائلين المولى أن يتقبل منا ويبارك لنا في أعمالنا وفي هذا الرمضان الشهر المبارك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافئ مزيده. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد صلاة تفتح لنا بها أبواب الخير والتيسير وتغلق عنا بها أبواب الشر والتعصير وتكون لنا بها مولى ونصير، فنعم المولى ونعم النصير. اللهم اجعل جمعنا هذا جمعا مرحوما وتفرقنا من بعده تفرقا معصوما، ولا تجعل فينا ولا منا ولا معنا شقيا أو محروما. اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا يا كريم. اللهم احفظ بلادنا واحفظ بلاد المسلمين واحفظ أهل فلسطين والمسجد الأقصى من كيد الظالمين وأيدهم بنصرك وقوتك يا رب. يا رب إننا نستودعك بيت المقدس والمسجد الأقصى وأهل القدس. اللهم كن لهم عونا ونصيرا يا رب العالمين. إلهنا هذا دعاؤنا وهذا رجاؤنا، لا تخيب رجاءنا وأنت أرحم الراحمين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والله الموفق إلى أقوم الطريق. ثم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you, Dr. Ilyas. Before we close this event, we would like to invite the rector to present souvenirs to the panelists and the guest of honors for a memorabilia for this event. To the rector, please grant the souvenirs, starting from His Excellency, Mr. Zuhair, and also to Mr. Muhammad Abdul Hafiz, as delegates from the Palestinian Authority. Thank you. Continuing to the other panelists, Kiai Yahya Khalil Stako, to James M. Dorsey, and also to Mr. Imam Adarukutni. You may remain on the stage to take a picture. Yeah. Also, we would like to invite His Excellency Mr. Uwaidia bin Abdullah on the stage for a picture. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our agenda. Once again, our sincerest gratitude for your participation, whether it is online or offline. Before we close this forum, I'd like to remind all the audience that we'll have iftar meal prepared. So please feel free to retrieve the meal behind this venue. And thank you, and we look forward to having you again in another occasion. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.